Chapter 8. Mutual Understanding. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm, golden hue over the landscape as Ash and Dawn walked silently through the forest. The tension between them hung thick in the air, each step punctuated by the unspoken frustrations that had been building for weeks. Their once inseparable bond had become strained, pulled taut by the weight of their transformations and the emotional toll that came with them. Each was wrapped in their own thoughts, their own struggles, and neither was willing to break the silence that had grown like a chasm between them. But something had to give. The breaking point. It started with something small, an offhand comment from Ash about how uncomfortable his clothes felt. They had been walking for hours, and the skirt he was wearing was riding up uncomfortably against his thighs, the lace panties beneath it chafing in a way that made him want to scream. He tugged at the fabric, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "I don't know how you ever wore this stuff," Ash muttered, his voice tight with annoyance. "It's so impractical." Dawn, walking beside him in Ash's old jeans and t-shirt, shot him a sideways glance. "It's not that bad once you get used to it," she said, her tone neutral, though there was a hint of defensiveness in her voice. Ash scoffed. "Well, I'm not sure I want to get used to it. I feel like I'm constantly exposed." Dawn's jaw tightened. "You think I haven't felt the same way? Do you know how weird it is to suddenly have all this muscle? I can hardly fit into anything I used to wear. And don't even get me started on how heavy everything feels now." Ash stopped walking, turning to face her. His frustration flared. "But, at least you're still, I don't know yourself. You're still strong, still confident. I feel like I'm falling apart. I don't even know who I am anymore." Dawn stopped too, her eyes narrowing as she stared at him. "You think I'm myself? Ash, look at me." She gestured to her body with a sharp wave of her hand. "I'm not me anymore. I'm you. I have your voice, your face, your body. Do you think it's easy for me to just be this? Do you think I enjoy feeling like a stranger in my own skin?" Ash opened his mouth to respond but faltered, the words dying in his throat. He hadn't considered it that way. He had been so focused on his own discomfort, his own struggle to adjust, that he hadn't truly thought about what Dawn was going through. He had assumed that, because she now had his body, the body of someone strong, athletic, and confident, that she would be fine. But now, looking at her, seeing the anger and frustration in her eyes, he realized that she was just as lost as he was. Dawn's voice softened, though it was still laced with frustration. "We're both going through hell, Ash. I know it's hard for you, but I'm struggling too. I miss being myself. I miss feeling pretty, feminine. Now I just feel awkward." Ash swallowed, guilt gnawing at him. I didn't realize." Dawn shook her head, her expression softening. "That's the problem, Ash. We've both been so wrapped up in our own struggles that we haven't really thought about how the other is feeling. We're both going through this, and instead of supporting each other, we've been pushing each other away." Ash's shoulders slumped, the weight of her words sinking in. She was right. They had been so focused on their individual battles that they had forgotten they were in this together. He had been so consumed by his own discomfort, his own fear of losing his identity, that he hadn't stopped to think about how Dawn was feeling, how she was dealing with the same fears, the same uncertainty. "I'm sorry," Ash said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. "I've been selfish. I've been so focused on how weird this all feels for me that I didn't stop to think about what you were going through." Dawn took a deep breath, her posture relaxing slightly. I'm sorry too. I've been frustrated, and I've taken it out on you. But we need to stop fighting. We need to start working together. We're not going to figure this out if we keep tearing each other apart. Ash nodded, a sense of relief washing over him. You're right. We need to stick together. For the first time in weeks, they both felt a sense of clarity. The tension between them eased, and the silence that followed wasn't filled with anger or frustration, but with a new understanding. Learning to adapt. In the days that followed, Ash and Dawn made a conscious effort to support each other. They stopped focusing solely on their own struggles and started paying more attention to how the other was feeling. Slowly, they began to adapt, not just to their new bodies, but to the emotional challenges that came with them. Ash, for his part, began to embrace the softer, more delicate features of his new appearance. It wasn't easy at first. He still felt awkward in Dawn's clothes, still struggled with the way his hips swayed when he walked, the way his breasts moved with every step. But with Dawn's help, he started to see the beauty in his new form. She taught him how to move with grace, how to carry himself with the confidence that had once come so naturally to her. One afternoon, they stood in front of a full-length mirror in a small inn they had rented for the night. Ash was wearing one of Dawn's dresses, a soft blue sundress that hugged his new curves in a way that made him feel both exposed and elegant. He adjusted the straps awkwardly, his fingers fumbling with the lace trim. I don't know about this, Ash muttered, his cheeks flushing as he looked at his reflection. I feel weird. Dawn, standing beside him in Ash's old clothes, smiled gently. You look great, Ash. You just need to own it. You need to stop thinking about how you used to be, and start embracing who you are now. Ash bit his lip, his eyes scanning over his reflection. And his face, Dawn's face, looked back at him, framed by long dark hair that cascaded over his shoulder. His body, soft and delicate, was so different from the one he had known for years. But as he looked closer, he realized that there was a certain elegance to the way he looked now. The way the dress flowed around his hips, the way the soft blue fabric contrasted with his pale skin. It wasn't so bad. You think? He asked, his voice hesitant. Dawn nodded. I know it's weird, but you'll get used to it. And once you do, you'll realize that being feminine doesn't make you any less you. You're still Ash. You're just Ash, in a new form. Ash smiled faintly, a sense of warmth spreading through him. Oh, thanks, Dawn. Dawn shrugged, her smile turning playful. Hey, if I can get used to being a guy, you can get used to being a girl. Ash chuckled, the tension in his shoulders easing. Fair enough. Dawn's journey. While Ash was learning to embrace his new appearance, Dawn was going through her own journey of self-discovery. She had always prided herself on her femininity, on her grace, her beauty. But now, in Ash's body, she had been forced to confront a new reality. Her body was strong, muscular, and undeniably masculine. It had taken her weeks to adjust to the way it moved, the way her muscles flexed with every step, the way her voice rumbled in her chest when she spoke. But over time, she began to appreciate the strength and athleticism of her new form. She started to see the benefits of having a body that could run faster, hit harder, and endure more. She found herself enjoying the physicality of it, the way her muscles worked, the way she could push herself further than she ever had before. One evening, as they trained together in a clearing outside of the city, Dawn found herself sparring with Ash. They had decided to use their new bodies to their advantage, testing their limits and learning how to move in ways that complemented their transformations. Dawn threw a punch, her knuckles grazing Ash's arm as he dodged. She was faster now, more powerful, and it thrilled her in a way she hadn't expected. "You're getting better," Ash said, his voice breathless as he ducked under another swing. Dawn grinned, a surge of pride swelling in her chest. "I'm getting used to it." She pivoted on her heel, her body moving with a fluidity that felt foreign but exciting. She had always been agile, but now she was strong too. Her muscles worked in perfect harmony, allowing her to move in ways she never could have before. She could feel the power in her limbs, the way her body responded to every movement with precision and strength. As the sparring session continued, Dawn found herself enjoying the physicality of it more and more. She reveled in the way her body moved, the way her muscles flexed and stretched. For the first time since the transformation, she felt strong, not just physically, but emotionally. She was learning to embrace her new form, to appreciate the strength and power that came with it. After they finished, Dawn wiped the sweat from her brow, breathing heavily. She looked over at Ash, who was bent over, hands on his knees, panting. "You're getting better too," she said, her voice deep but warm. Ash smiled, still catching his breath. "I'm trying." Dawn clapped him on the back, perhaps a little harder than she intended, given her newfound strength, and grinned. "You're doing great. We both are." A new perspective. As the days turned into weeks, Ash and Dawn began to settle into their new reality. They still had moments of frustration, moments where they longed to be themselves again, but those moments were becoming less frequent. Instead, they found themselves adapting, learning to navigate their new bodies, their new identities, with a sense of acceptance. And as they adapted, their bond deepened. They began to adopt each other's mannerisms, helping one another navigate the physical and emotional challenges of their transformation. Ash taught Dawn how to move with more grace, how to carry herself with the confidence that had always defined him. Dawn, in turn, helped Ash embrace his femininity, showing him that being soft and delicate didn't make him any less strong. They spent hours talking, really talking, about how they were feeling, about their fears and insecurities. They shared their struggles, their triumphs, and in doing so, they began to see the world through each other's eyes. One evening, as they sat by the campfire, Ash looked over at Dawn, his expression thoughtful. "You know," he began, his voice soft, "I think I'm starting to understand what it's like to be you. Not just physically, but emotionally. I never realized how much pressure you must have felt to always be perfect. To always look a certain way, act a certain way. It's exhausting." Dawn smiled faintly, her eyes reflecting the flickering firelight. "I used to feel that way all the time, like I had to be this perfect image of femininity. But now, I'm starting to see that there's more to me than that. I'm strong, Ash. And not just because of this body. I've always been strong." Ash nodded, his heart swelling with admiration for her. "You're amazing, Dawn. I don't know how you've managed to stay so strong through all of this." Dawn chuckled, her voice deep but warm. "I had help." Ash smiled, feeling a sense of warmth and connection that he hadn't felt in a long time. They had been through so much together, faced challenges that no one else could understand. And yet, here they were, stronger than ever. "We'll figure this out," Ash said, his voice filled with quiet determination. "No matter what happens, we'll get through it. Together?" Dawn nodded, her eyes softening. Together. Seeing the world through each other's eyes. The transformation had forced them both to see the world in a new light. "Ash, once so confident in his strength and masculinity, had learned to embrace the beauty and grace of femininity. He had come to appreciate the softness of his new form. The way allowed him to move with a different kind of elegance. He no longer saw his reflection as something foreign and strange, but as a new version of himself, one that was just as valid, just as strong, as the old Ash. Dawn, too, had undergone a profound shift. She had always valued her femininity, had always taken pride in her delicate beauty. But now, in Ash's body, she had discovered a new kind of strength, a strength that went beyond physical power. She had learned to embrace the roughness, the raw energy that came with her new form, and in doing so, she had found a deeper sense of confidence and self-assurance. They had learned to support each other, to understand each other in ways they never had before. Their bond had deepened in the most unexpected way, and they both knew that no matter what the future held, they would face it together. As the fire crackled softly in the background, Ash and Dawn sat side by side, their shoulders brushing gently against each other. They were no longer just Ash and Dawn, no longer just friends or traveling companions. They were something more now, something stronger. They had seen the world through each other's eyes, and in doing so, they had found a new kind of understanding, a new beginning. The journey ahead was still uncertain. They didn't know if they would ever find a way to reverse the transformation, or if they would remain in each other's bodies forever. But, for the first time in a long time, that uncertainty didn't scare them. They had each other, and that was enough. As the stars twinkled overhead and the fire burned low, Ash and Dawn sat in comfortable silence, their hearts lighter than they had been in weeks. They knew that, whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Because they weren't just Ash and Dawn anymore. They were a team, and nothing could break that bond.